She was put there, and like without even asking her, she was married off, and they literally like drag her out of the home to the husband's home. So she called us at midnight, like she ring 2 times, 3 times, and I have this strange phone number calling me at middle of the night, and I'm trying to get back, but she won't pick up. So eventually we got to speak, and she said, I cannot live here. You have to get me out of here. I don't want to get married now. I have to finish my grade 12. I don't want to live in this home. And she tells me the whole story of what happened. And then I had to talk to the parents saying this is really emergency, that she has to complete her grade 12 and you should let her go for at least 6 months to complete her education. And she got out of there. We went and rescued her from that situation, and now she's in our care to complete her education. So this kind of situation we still deal every day.
Welcome back to another episode of the Protect the World podcast. Every month, I connect with a different not-for-profit organisation that's making the world a better place. My goal is to learn about the issues they're tackling, interview the founder or director, and then share their stories with you. But I don't just want to share their stories. I want to contribute to their work as well. If you'd like to help me, you can sign up to the Patreon via the link in the show notes. The voice you heard at the beginning of this podcast belongs to Sanam Sherpa, co-founder and director of women's empowerment at The Small World. Based in the Solukhumbu district of northern Nepal, The Small World works tirelessly to create sustainable community development projects with a core focus on girls' education and women's empowerment. During this conversation, Sanam and I discuss The Small World's key focus areas and goals, the challenges facing young women in rural Nepal, and Sanam's own experiences growing up in the region. Sanam's story is an inspiring one, and I hope it shines a light on the incredible work being done in the shadows of the world's tallest and most infamous mountain. So now I bring you Sanam Sherpa, co-founder and director of women's empowerment at The Small World. Sanam Sherpa, a very warm welcome to the Protect the World podcast. How are you today?
Thank you very much. It's an honor for me to be here today on my very first podcast with you.
I'd like to start by asking, who are you and how do you describe yourself?
Well, so my name is Sanam Sherpa, and about me, I am one of the girl who was born up in the mountain, in the lap of Mount Everest, Nepali girl, and brought up in a quite patriarchal society, and seen a lot of things and experienced a lot of things, and really actually learned a lot about what it means to be a girl in a country like Nepal, and then to be an orphan girl and still move forward.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm really excited to hear about the region that you grew up in. Tell me a little bit more about it for people who don't know that part of Nepal.
So Nepal is a beautiful country that lies between two giants, China and India. Very small country, but also the country with world's highest mountains. You have heard Mount Everest, and we have almost every 8,000ers that's in the world, all in Nepal. Landlocked country, generous people, geographically very, very beautiful. But also this is the country to 5 million child brides. And every year, thousands of girls being trafficked from Nepal. We have huge gender gap, and in gender disparity index, we stand in about 106. We ranked in 106 or 7 somewhere. So in that sense, it is a sad place to be born as a girl too.
And I understand that you're working to change that with an organization called the Small World, and you're one of the co-founders. We'll talk about the day-to-day and the programs that you do in a moment. But firstly, how would you describe the purpose of the Small World? Why does the organization exist?
So our purpose of the small world is pretty clear. It's to educate girls and to empower girls and to give them a voice. Actually, to bring their potentials out, which they already have. That every girl is bright, smart, and powerful, but they do not have a voice yet. So to those girls, we stand as a support, a platform where they can find their voice choices and they can decide who they want to be and how they want to move forward in their life. And the reason the small world exists is 30 years ago, some person who was traveling to see the mountains was kind and generous enough to offer me an educational opportunity, which I didn't had, which was not normal for the girls in my community. And that turned out that completely changed my life. So it's my way of paying it forward for what I got, the gift that changed my life forever. So the reason the small world exists is someone was kind and a random act of kindness completely changed my life.
That's wonderful. I'm looking forward to hearing that story in a little bit more detail in the second half of our conversation. Returning to the organisation now, tell me a little bit about the Small World's history. How did the organisation begin?
So I just shared a little bit that I was born and grew up in a small mountain village where girls' education was not a norm, and I grew up with two younger sisters. And I hear a lot of conversation people doing with my parents. How are you going to move forward without a son in your family? And are you not having a son? So for a child that time, it wasn't anything, just a conversation, but I slowly understood why girls are not celebrated in my community. People don't celebrate their birth, and how it was such a pressure for my parents to have a son, and how there are so many other mothers who gave birth to 7, 8, 9 girls in a hope of a son, and so that all, and plus I lost my parents when I was only 14, and then even I learned more about what it is means to be an orphan girl and these discriminations, these taboos, this way of thinking, and this way of people looking down upon or looking differently to the people who lost everything. So those events in my life, those events forced me to question why is this happening and what can I do about it. So that brought about the idea of maybe doing something similar to what my sponsor did to me, educate some more people, because I understood that only education is one power that you can have forever with you in country like this where nothing is yours, not your parents, not your in-laws, not your husband, which I can go more detail in because of our cultural and traditional norms.
Yeah, if you could expand on that a little bit, tell me what you mean by that.
So, culturally and traditionally, when girls are born in a family, they don't really are happy because they always expect a boy, um, because they believe boy can carry the generation forward. Your kids will be named after your son. The daughters basically are a guest at their mother's home, parents' home, because once we get married, we will leave the parents' home and go with our in-laws, live with your husband, right? So parents are not really interested in investing in girls for education. They're like, why do we even educate her? She's eventually going to take care of someone. So we have a very famous saying, educating a girl is like watering your neighbor's lawn. And then once you get married in in-laws home, they always think she is from somewhere else, she doesn't belong to us, so why would we invest on her? So basically you don't have anywhere, you don't have your parents home, you don't have your in-laws home. And if you are not educated, if you don't have a skill, if you don't know what your rights are, if you cannot say no or yes, or what you want to choose, or how do you want to go ahead, you don't have anything, you have no power. And only education and empowerment and mentorship can give those powers to you. So girls do, they, like typical scenario in villages, they don't own anything. So education is the only power that you can call yourself. It's yours, you own it.
Brilliant. And how long has the Small World been around for? When did it start?
About 18 years now.
And you work in the Solukhumbu district in Nepal. For people who haven't heard of this region, how would you describe it, and how is it different to the rest of Nepal?
So Solukhumbu district is one of the most geographically complex district of Nepal, just because we have the Mount Everest in the district and also other mountains in the district. So many people do climbing, and mountain and tourism is our way of life, our way of surviving. We make income from them. But also, there are a lot of people who are not connected to tourism, who are farmers and who don't have jobs and other opportunities. So it's a mix of different differences there. So people who are connected to the mountains have like lodges and do the climbing. They have a little bit better life than the people who don't have any of those opportunity, because you live in this really high climate situation where you cannot grow so much, where you cannot depend on farming and all other things. So well, it's a two completely beautiful and then hard life there. So you get to see that both in Solukhumbu.
Fascinating. And you spoke about the challenge of girls' education and women's empowerment. What are some of the other key challenges facing the people in that region, in that district?
Well, I think basically the mindset of how they look at girls is it's very difficult, how our patriarchy, how our society and community determines, like predetermines the lives of girls, that they will be born, they will be married by 13, 14, and they will raise children, and they will take care of the in-law, they will cook for them. So they just have set our life already, so we are put in a little box. And if we try to be a little bit beyond that or different than that, that's going to be a challenge. So not every girl has that courage to say, I don't want to get married at 13. I want to study further. So even today, just today, I'm dealing with this situation where we have the small world have support, like we have girls ranging from all ages, and our girls who is currently in grade 12, she went home for her holiday. We have a huge big holiday for Nepalese, big festival called Dasai, and she went home, and for her surprise, everything was prepared. She was arranged to be married the day she arrived, and she was put there, and like without even asking her, she was married off, and they literally like drag her out of the home to the husband's home, and she was there crying, and she didn't know what to do. So she called us at midnight, like she ring 2 times, 3 times, and I have this strange phone number calling me at middle of the night, and I'm trying to get back, but she won't pick up. So eventually we got to speak, and she said, I cannot live here. You have to get me out of here. I don't want to get married now. I have to finish my grade 12. I don't want to live in this home. And she tells me the whole story of what happened. And then I had to talk to the parents saying this is really emergency, that she has to complete her grade 12, and you should let her go for at least 6 months to complete her education. And she got out of there. We went and rescued her from that situation, and now she's in our care to complete her education. So this kind of situation we still deal every day.
That's an incredible story. Thank you for sharing. Um, my next question was, what does an average day look like for you at the small world? But it sounds like you just kind of explained it. Yeah, but what sort of programs, what supports do you have running for these girls?
So in the very beginning, our program was we aimed that we will help girls go to school, and that was through scholarship. Because the one main challenge that the girls are not in school is when parents have limited resources and they have to divide it between sons and daughter. The sons got it and daughter didn't. So we started with a scholarship for the girls, sponsoring them to get their educational materials, their uniforms, their school bags, whatever they needed for school. But then as we learn more in deeper in society and community, that many places don't have waters. They have to walk for hours to get waters, and they always kept girls home because she's supposed to help her mother to fetch the water. Then we had to do some water projects so that mothers have waters and they can send the girls to school. So we did a couple of community development projects as well. And then people requested us to build school buildings so that they can accommodate girls and boys because they didn't have enough infrastructure. So we did a couple of school constructions. So in Solukhumbu, we have done about 15 school constructions. It was also during the earthquake that many school buildings were collapsed and bad, so we helped them reconstruct those. But eventually, right now, we focus on girls' education through grade 1 through master's degree, and then we have mentorship program for them all year round. And then we do have a child protection program, which is different than our girls program, where the children who do not have anyone, who do not have no parents, they live with us in complete care of ours. And then we have one project which is agricultural support for the mothers because, as I told you, Everest region, we're right in the lap of Mount Everest. Even though climate crisis, global warming, for many is like something that they will see on news or documentaries or still question whether it's real or unreal. This is happening real, and people here in the like front line who have contributed so little on global warming are facing the challenge. So we're helping these mothers and the farmers combat that by helping in agricultural programs. So we are right now what we are doing is pretty simple. We're just distributing greenhouse tunnels and training them to how to grow it in like the droughts or when there's heavy snowfall, when there's too much water, when there's no water. So those situations and how they can still grow. So that's what we are doing. And those are our programs currently.
That sounds amazing. I'm keen to talk a little bit more about each of them. But just going back to what you said about climate change, could you explain some of the impacts that you're seeing related to climate in that region, and how has the environment changed over the last few decades in the area that you're in?
So very first thing I can say is the mountains don't have snows on them. When we were growing up, we used to see these mountains completely white all year round, and now about 6 months, 7 months, these are huge black rocks standing there. And then second one is recently one of the beautiful village called Kame, that's in the Everest region, is completely swept away by glacier outburst. So we had 2 days of continuous rain, and the temperatures are rising every year. I don't know in degrees. I haven't measured, but we can feel it. Like September, it's today's like November. It's supposed to be very cold, but like I don't have need a jacket at all. So still like daytime it's hot. So whether the temperature is really rising, and that is really helping melt the ice that's like supposed to melt in 30 years. I think they're melting in 1 year. So it's really really getting hot and like unusual temperature, and that is definitely doing a lot on the mountains, glaciers, and our lakes, everything. But more importantly, what we can really see is on the farmers, the mothers, that they cannot grow according to the seasons are all changing. They don't know which plant to grow, when, and when harvest. When it rains too much. So we had one of the biggest flooding in Nepal right a month ago, just a month ago. And we had droughts, like long droughts last year. So all of these I think are like direct impact of global warming that's happening. And also the link between global warming and girls' education is very, very clear. So whenever there is an issue, whenever there is a shortage, whenever there is a disaster, everybody eventually like directly thinks like girls should leave the school and come home, help the home, like get food or get water. And lots of displacements are happening now, and that's eventually going to have a big impact on girls' education and like also other children's education because they are moving from place to place, and the schools are closed and it's not normally not operating.
That's that was an excellent summary of the challenges that you're facing currently. Um, Just returning, you mentioned the recent floods. I believe the small world does sort of disaster relief when these kinds of things happen. Could you maybe explain what happened with the floods, and then how did your organization respond to them?
So the flooding was it was very unexpected because our monsoon season was almost over. So we were not expecting rain, but it rained a lot for 24 hours. So our usual rain in a year is about 515 ml a year, but in those 24 hours we got over 250 ml of water. So we just got like half a year worth of water in 24 hours. So everything was like overflowing. It's like you put a biscuit in tea for so long that it just got soaked and like it's dropping, right? So the lands were completely like dropping and sliding, and then the rivers got like huge, like I've never seen that big of a river. And so it literally like took away everything that's by the riverside, and many people who were on the road traveling got stuck in landslide. So it killed many people, and it got like everything got disconnected from the capital, from each other, right? So it was very terrifying situation. And so our like immediate response was to, after the rescues happened, our immediate help was to provide them shelter and food, and a lot of menstrual products for the women and girls who are in those places. So we did that, and then hot meal was our next approach for them to cook hot meals, because even though we provide them food, they didn't have place to cook or sit and eat. So we started doing a communal hot meal for everybody. And our graduated girls actually were all volunteering. They helped us a lot. So a number of our girls were on the field doing the rescue and relief effort. So it was nice to see these girls that come out and give in during emergencies.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that the people that you've been supporting were able to come out and support you when you needed the help. That's fantastic. Um, just returning to the agriculture program that you mentioned, could you explain that in a little bit more detail? How does it work?
So we have in the communities we have formed mother groups, and these each mother groups we train them on how to deal with whatever is happening right now with the climate, and what we would expect in the days to come, that it will only get worse. And we have tried different seeds, the varieties of seeds which are different than what they normally had before. And we have built greenhouses for them. I mean, they actually built the greenhouses for themselves because we brought them the materials that they needed. And so they get training from our agriculture expert, and they get observations, and then like refreshment trainings on how to harvest, how to do it, how to do the prunings, and all of these. I mean, they have always been farmers. They have always been farmers, but now we are just teaching them completely few new steps that completely change their harvesting and planting, and then the way that they do, and they can harvest a lot more than normal with the same effort and amount of time.
Interesting. So it's kind of helping them to adapt their farming techniques to changing climates. Is that the idea?
Totally, exactly, yes.
Great. And I think you mentioned before the girls' dorm that you have set up for people who need that kind of support and protection. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So we have this girls' dorm that we built in Everest region. It's one of the first of its kind. So what happens is like the villages are very scattered. When I talk about a village, it's like maybe 50 people here and 50 people like 3 hours away, and then 50 people somewhere else, right up in the mountain, down in the valley. And then in between, they have a school which goes from grade 1 through grade 10. And usually everybody walks to the school, which is normal. Like I walked 2 hours to my school every day, back and forth 4 hours, which is normal. I didn't thought about anything different, or I didn't imagine there would be a different way to go to school. I was just too happy that I was in school. And after grade 10, if you want to study further, you have to leave that village and go to the district headquarters or nearest town, which would be like 8 hours to 10 hours walk to days. So then parents decide like, why should a girl go to that far? Like she has to rent a room. So mostly girls don't get opportunity to go to school after grade 10 if she got up to grade 10. So like the girls dropout rate in my region after grade 10 is, if 10 girls pass grade 10, 7 drops out. So it's 70% dropout at grade 10. And our mission is to help them go through after grade 10 in high schools and then universities. So we built this girls' dorm in the district headquarters, and then it offers them free accommodation, free tuition, and also provide them trainings with computer, and then they get mentorship, they get a lot of financial literacy training. We do menstrual hygiene, health and hygiene, and sexual health, and all of this combined program for 2 years, so that they groom themselves and they want to study further. And then we've helped them go to the bachelor's and universities after that.
Fantastic. That sounds like a really incredible program that you've got. How many girls at one time do you have in the dorm?
So we have 12 girls in grade, 20 girls in grade 12 and 20 girls in grade 11 each year. So each year, 20 girls graduates from there.
Wow, that's incredible. I like the sound of that. You mentioned human trafficking before. I was interested. What sort of age are girls most vulnerable to that risk of trafficking? What age group are they looking at?
And so the trafficking index shows girls as young as 10 years are being trafficked. So every year, like there are different datas, but every year, like 15,000 to 20,000 girls are being trafficked from Nepal. And 10% of them are very young as 10 years old. So the range is big, like 10, and then it goes up to 18, 20. So trafficking, when I say it, it is not like that somebody will come and put your gun on your head and then take you away. So it's much more like, this person that will come to you and tell you that there is a job opportunity in the city, and then you will just follow them. Or somebody will come and give you a marital proposal and then say you will settle in a big city, beautiful place, you will have this and that, and they will just follow. So it's more like taking advantage of the disadvantaged people and taking them with their agreement. Actually, you agreed to go with them. So that is how it's happening. It's not like some group of gang coming and taking you away. So that sorts of thing. It's we have international trafficking, and also we have trafficking that happens within the country. So people from villages are brought to the city and they will be put to work on different entertainment society or different places where against their will or their interest. So this is what's happening in the trafficking in Nepal.
And how do you combat that? How do you prevent that?
First of all, very important that we realized is the education and the awareness. You being in school actually helps uh, keep you safe. So that's our first thing that we realized. So every girl should be in school, and if she's gone missing or not in school for 2 or 3 days, then we'll start searching for her so that we can find her before she leaves the village or she actually leaves the border. That's what we do with our community mobilizers. Now we have community mobilizers in every village, and they knows that she's in school every day. That helps. And more than that, we also try to educate people how it is happening. So peer education really helps, and we do peer education for each school that we send our senior girls, and they do lots of peer education. And for the mother and then father and the uncle and aunts, we do it through lots of plays, because the pamphlets or the boards doesn't work for them because they don't know how to read and write. So we do plays, and we tell them the stories of how it happens and what happens afterward. So lots of education and awareness on that.
That's great. I believe you also do a little bit of work in healthcare. You have a community health center. Is that right? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, we have built this small medical center, community medical center in a village called Fuleli, and we have been providing just basic emergencies and essentials, and doing a lot of education again on maternal and child health, pregnancies, and like under five nutritions, and also providing care to those people who cannot walk to the hospital. So our nurses, they walk to their homes like 3 hours, 4 hours, and provide them cares in their own homes. And this medical center is in on the trail to Mount Everest. So any porters or any traveler that they are not feeling well, they can also use it for them for their service. And the girls who are working on the medical clinic are our own student, our own graduates. So they are working in the clinic and they're giving back.
Wow, I love that whole holistic model you've got where people are coming back to work for you after being part. That's really cool.
Yeah, about 60% of the Small World staffs and program coordinators and menstrual hygiene champions, they are all our own students.
60%. Wow, I don't think I've come across an organization that has that kind of dynamic to it. That's really cool. I'd like to sort of shift focus to you as an individual now, Sana. But before I do, is there anything else about the Small World as an organization that you would like to emphasize that we haven't talked about already?
I think we've talked about almost everything. Yeah, so Bless My World is just a platform for every girl who don't have a voice or who have a big dream and they want to be there, like out there, but don't have the means to do that. So we make sure they get what they need. And we design our programs now, putting them in the center, like girls, boys, and what they want to do, what they need. So they actually decide it for themselves. Like, for example, our mentorship classes are all designed by the girls. They want to have this and they don't want to have that. So, it's more them leading us and then us telling you need this, so you take this. So we are trying to do that. And yeah, so that's what we are doing. And in 18 years, now we have our girls in medical school, in law, computer engineer, business, hotel management. So like every kind of subjects that's available, they are taking it. And we are very proud that these girls are out there and they are much more smarter than me when I was at their age, and they are much more speaking, and because they got all this grooming and mentorship and they are so bright, and I'm just so waiting to see what they brings in future. So last 18 years, like when you invest in education, it's a different than you investing on building a construction building. You will see the building in 6 months, but education, you just keep continually pouring on them and pouring on them, hoping that someday it will happen, but you don't actually see anything tangible right away. So I'm just very grateful to every supporter that actually helped us through all these years, not seeing anything, just a report card and a girl's picture, right? So those supporters are very patient, those donors are very patient, that they have actually invested in girls' education. And today I'm so proud to tell them that 37% of our girls are giving back, working in their own community in a respectable job positions like teachers, nurses, media person, community leaders, business. So these are all the things that I can show now, and that makes me very proud.
I can imagine. That's incredible. Well done. Yeah, talking a little bit more about your own personal story now. Tell me about your upbringing. What was your family like? What was your childhood like?
So I was born in this small village called Takshindu, in a family of my dad was a porter for trekking, and my mother was housewife, and she's never been to school, and my dad has never been to school, and me and my two younger sister. So we grew up together, and school was not for us. So it also because not other many girls went to school. So my grandfather, the school is so new for our whole community. Like we are the first generation to be in school. Actually, my grandfather, they never saw school. My parents, they saw school. The school came, somebody built the school, but they didn't even know why they should go to school. And then when we are there, like because they don't know what happens when you get education, or why do you have to go to school when you can grow the potatoes and eat them and that's your life, like you don't have to go to school, it doesn't make any sense to them. So not many children went to school. If any, then those were mostly boys. And then I just got lucky that someone who was traveling to Everest, trekking through our town, saw us playing in one of the weekdays, and then just being curious why the children are not in school. And then they knew the whole story that girls don't go to school and school is so new. So they decided they should send some money to send me or one of us to school. And they asked my parents, and they said, why not? If you send the money, of course. So that's how I got in the school in the very first place. And I enjoyed being in school. And then I graduated as a nurse. I graduated as a registered nurse, but also I lost my parents meanwhile during those times, both of them in 9 months. And that really brought a lot of unexpected, I wasn't prepared for any of those. So that was a big shock for me, but also then then I knew my community and people much more deeper, that how they saw an orphan girl as a bad luck, like that we will bring bad luck to them. And it's very, very stigmatized that if they saw us in the morning, their days will be bad, that we are bearer of bad karma. We did something terrible, that's why our parents are lost. So I grew up hearing that as at age of 14. And that kind of shaped me, like that at those moments, like my own instinct is like, I want to give up, I don't want to live with these people, like with hearing this every day. And what kept me going was that I was like better than them in some way, because whoever said this to me, they didn't even know how to write their names. So I said myself, I'm a little bit, I know better than them, there must be some reason. So I said like, I so that my hope was that one day I will tell them I wasn't bad person, I wasn't bad person, like I didn't want it to my parents to be gone. So that kept me going. And I continued my education. It was tough because I also had two younger sisters. So the other one thing that kept me going was my sponsor. So I shared all of this to her and said that this happened. And I because I could write English then, so you know that how that saved my life. So she said, this is not right, this is not correct, it doesn't happen, it's not like that everywhere, because people die all over, and it's not always somebody's fault that they are dying. And especially not for the children at all, because if anyone in the world want their parents to be alive, it's you, like you want your parents to be alive, not to be dead. So that kind of shift my mental stress to something to be focused. And then I want to be like, I want to go to school and be educated and just be a different than everyone else. And then I graduated. And also when after I graduate, I see the difference in my life and my friends that we grew up together but have not been to school. I had this wide world open for me. I have all these opportunities that was right in front of me, and I can choose. But for my friends, they were still in village, so they had cows. They were still doing the things normally other would do, which is not bad. But their world was so small than mine, and I took that as a very, very powerful thing to have. And I could communicate in English. I could connect to the world. I could see the other part of the world, and that just made me feel very powerful. And also to thank the sponsor that changed my life in such a incredible way that I couldn't even find a word or a gift to say how incredibly thankful I was. So I decided that I will do something similar and that she did to me. And then that was the concept of giving back. Then I didn't know that we will grow. I will like the small world will happen, and this will grow so much that I'll have this impact, which was not imagined then. I thought I will do support one children, and that's all.
That's incredible. I can only imagine what having having you there for people who are growing up in a similar situation, having someone that they can speak to and relate to about those issues must be really, really important. So that's great. Um, you mentioned your sponsor. Were there any other key role models that you had growing up? Was there anyone that you looked up to, a teacher or a public figure?
Yeah, so the teacher were one of the other person that I looked up to, because in this tiny village where all the people were not in school, we had this lady teacher. She was not from our community, because at those times the Himalayan region schools always hired people from either India or from border to India, because they had more access to education. So we had a lady teacher. She was from border to India, but she always came, and she was nice and clean. And I was like, I want to be someone nice and clean and don't be doing the farming job, like how you see everybody doing like digging and carrying and everything, and then her job seems so easy and nice and elegant and clean, and you just like, oh, one day I'll be doing something like this, not like that. Which, I mean, I don't, not in offensive way, but as a child, when you see this and that, so you just try to choose the other one. Yeah.
Interesting. Very good. And I believe that the Small World has a partnership with the Obama Foundation. How did you become involved with Barack and Michelle?
So that is a very interesting story because I think like when Obama Foundation started, they started with a mission to educate girls and children all over the world, and they wanted to do it in a way a little bit different. That they didn't want to have an Obama Foundation, sister Obama Foundation in every country, but they want to partner with an organization which is already doing the similar thing. So they were looking for different organizations which had a similar missions, and in Nepal they found us, and we applied for their partnership, and we got it. So that's how we got in working together with Obama Foundation.
Brilliant. And I believe you got to meet Barack Obama when he visited Nepal. What was he like?
Exactly. That was like my like it was like, I don't know how to put this in word. I didn't had like in my wildest dream that I will this little orphan girl brought up in a small village, like everybody telling you that you don't even deserve to be educated, that's sitting next to the President Obama. So it was very very transformative, very very powerful moment for me personally, because that just proved how if you have the education and if you have the passion and if you dream, actually it can happen, and you have to be working consistently for this, and that can happen. So when I met him in person in Greece, in Athens 2023, it was we I was nervous, normal, naturally, right? I should be nervous, right? So I was so nervous. I mean, we were a group of 18 women from all over the world doing similar thing, educating people, helping people with girls' rights and other things, other issues. So we sat in this circle, and he was there. He came there, and we were all nervous, but he just made us feel like we are all okay. We're all the same. So we will talk normally, right? Not a president and like a little girl, but we will all talk normally. So he made us all feel seen and heard, and even he shared stories, and he inspired us, and he also made all of us feels like we are the leaders as well. So we are doing something very important as well. So I saw that was so powerful. And how can someone like him, in his presence, I felt like, right, I'm doing something wonderful too. So that was very powerful, and we spent about 30 minutes together. Yeah, a dream, definitely. Yeah.
Amazing. Those the other 18 women that were there. Are you still in touch with any of them? Have you got like a little network?
Yeah, so the whole idea was also to connect with other people around the world who are doing similar thing, because this journey sometimes seems so beautiful, but also you feel lonely because you are dealing with so many things. Like, you put out the beautiful things that we share with people, but also everyday life we deal with so many things that we cannot even disclose. We deal with events that we cannot even share, and we deal with those lives. Like, the achievements is also alive, like when you share a story of achievement that this little girl became a doctor, but also there are so many, not every girl succeed to get there, and there are so many places where we feel like our efforts are not making any change. And so it's very tiring, and it's very lonely also sometimes. But we having this network of people doing similar things all around the world, it kind of make you realize that this is a huge mountain, the problems that we are facing, but from all over around the world, we're trying to push the same mountain. Whether you see or not, there are other people pushing it too, right? You're not alone. So we're all trying to push this mountain from this place to that place, and we are together on this journey. So that makes me feel very strong. We connect. We are a very strong connection with all of the friends that we met in our Athens convening.
I love that you used a mountain metaphor when you're under Everest at the moment. That was good. We're coming up on the 10-year anniversary of the devastating 2015 earthquake in Nepal. Tell me, how has the country changed in the last 10 years, and what role has the small world played in those changes?
Well, so Nepal actually has been through so much. We had a civil war for 10 years, and then that just got over. Then our monarchy got thrown out. We lived without constitution for several years, and eventually we had a constitution drafted. And then we had a huge earthquake in 2015, and then slowly people were getting back. But then we had COVID in 2019, and now we had the flood and more flood and issues. And then we had so Nepal has been through so much, and politically we have been very, very unstable also. Just that we don't have the, like, what I feel is we don't have the right leadership, we don't have the right representation of people in the leadership position, because like the average age of our Nepalese is 25 and average age of our leader is like 60. So we have no youth representation in the government at all, and that makes that makes it very difficult for them to represent youth also. So what the small world is doing is that we are trying to empower these people who are very good at many things, but they just do not know that they have that power within themselves. So what we see now after all these years of working is like these girls, that these we have an army of girls now, and like every year we have like about 12,000 girls in our program that are impacted through different varieties of programs. And all of these girls understand that they are as powerful as any one of other people around the world, and that they can, if they want, they can change the policies and they can transform it. And they don't want to inherit a system that they haven't co-created together. It's not working for them. And they see themselves as leadership positions. They see themselves in those positions making policies. So it's grooming. It's not there yet, but we hope someday it will be there.
Have you considered going into politics? I feel like you'd make a good leader.
Well, not definitely in politics, but I really want to help people be there. I can see so many other people being there. Like in my own program, I see so many other people being there and making policies, like changing policies and advocating for them was always an interest for me. But maybe I don't want to go mainstream politics. I just want to be there, mentoring or helping them get there.
That sounds good. I think a lot of people from outside Nepal associate the word Sherpa with people carrying bags up Mount Everest, but there's obviously so much more to your people and your culture. So tell me, what does being a Sherpa mean to you?
So Sherpa literally Shar means the east and Pa means the living there. So Sherpa means people from the east, and it's an ethnic group. So our last names are all Sherpas. So you will meet Sanam Sherpa, you will meet another Sherpa, you will meet another Sherpa. So it's a community of people with the same last name. And the porter thing, how it became so famous in the world is because Sherpas were the very first people to bring people up to the Mount Everest. Tenzing Norgay Sherpa, he did it first, and then many Sherpas, because we lived very up high in altitude wise, we lived pretty high. So the place that I was born is 3,600 meter, and everyone that lived up there had a better adjustment with the air and then the oxygen level and everything, so we could bring people up to the mountains without any problems. And then during those times, who brought people up, they carried their loads, so they helped them to get up there. So then, like, Sherpa people were the first one to bring people to the mountain, to fix the rope on the mountain, and to help them with every step. So they kind of picked that like last name as a job name. So in trekking industry now, there is a job title as Sherpa. but doesn't mean that people with the last name Sherpa only gets that job. Anybody can get that job. You can get that job if you are leading a group up in the mountain and doing that part, right? So they also have that job title, but Sherpa literally means people who live in the east.
And is that a significant part of your identity? Do you connect with that culture or not so much?
Sure, yeah, of course, because we grew up with the mountains. We saw mountains every day, and mountains like actually given us so much in our lives. Like the tourism that brought with the came in with the mountains and the beauty of the mountains, it really changed so many lives. But also being so close to the mountain, what I can tell is Mount Everest or any other mountain is not just the glory that you hear in the world. I also lived very closely with the widows that are given by Mount Everest, the orphans that are left behind by Mount Everest. So their stories are not being told, their stories are not being shared. And this is sad. Mount Everest is only, when we look from the other side of the world, it's only the glorification of people who climbed it, but not much about the people who we lost on the mountains and what, like the people who are left behind by that. I know people who died in the Everest was the sole breadwinner of the family, and the wife has 6, 7 children to raise, and she doesn't know what to do now because he's dead. And I grew up so closely with those stories. So every time when people ask me if you get excited about climbing, my feelings are always mixed because I don't know. I don't know. It's hard. It's your job, but it's also taking your lives. It's also giving you so many orphans and widows, and world doesn't know about that much.
Yeah, that's a really important point. I think, it's one thing to go up and climb a mountain and take that risk for yourself as an individual, but when you've got people working for you and helping you to do that and taking risks on your behalf, it's very challenging. Yeah. I believe you have 3 children. Is that right?
I do.
Tell me a little bit about the Nepal that you're trying to build for them. If you think ahead to when your children are your age, what do you hope that Nepal looks like?
Well, first of all, I think like the building a Nepal, the whole dream, like it sounds so big, but my focus is to build the families that appreciate girls as they do appreciate the boys. They just the society that looked at that start looking at girls as a human beings, just normal any other human beings. Like they have the right to go to school, they have the right to get married at the age that they want, and they have the right to get a number of children that they want and however they want. So I want to shift that mindset of our community a little bit so that they see girls as equal. And the society kind of sets so many rules for the girls that you don't do this, you don't say this, you be like this, you do like this. So they have set this box so tight, it's so hard to get out of that. And as even I talk to you, even like when I firmly believe that education is so powerful, sometimes even the educated friends of mine, they are so tight into this patriarchal structure that they know that it's wrong, they have to break it, but they cannot. So I want to change that a little bit and make a little bit of space for them. And I hope that each generation the space grows, and then eventually we have our own space.
And I guess on that note, what advice would you give to young Nepalese girls who are interested in doing the kind of work that you do?
Um, it's a For them, I think like just to be brave enough to break that little barrier. Like you don't have to change everything at once, but just saying that like having a period is normal. Like I don't want to go and live in a shed. It's normal. So trying to teach people, whoever believes that you have to live in shade, you cannot touch this, you are untouchable during your menstrual cycle. Just try to teach them what menstruation is, like how does it happen, and how can it be impure when you are actually giving birth, like you develop another human through this process. How can it be so impure that you have to be untouchable during those times? Something as small as that. So if we all try, it will happen. So speak it up, I know like people will look down, people will speak, people will say this and that, but just stand your ground. So like one small thing at a time, and then you do it for your next generation. Maybe nothing, not much will change for you, but then the next generation will see, like your daughter will see, your sister will see that you are doing this, and that kind of brings them up and give them that voice and encourage them to be stronger too.
That's great advice. We're coming towards the end of the conversation, but I have a couple of quick fire questions that I like to ask everyone. You keen for that?
Sure.
Okay. You're allowed to pick one person and you get to live their entire life from start to finish. So you pause your life right now, you live their whole life experiencing everything they experienced, and then you come back to your life with all of their memories. Who do you choose?
I think I'll choose Michelle Obama.
Your friend.
Oh, yeah, I can call that name now.
Why did you choose her?
I just think like the space that she holds in the world right now is so powerful. Her own story and becoming first lady, becoming black first lady, and then that she like the way she portrayed herself in the world. Despite people talking about what dress she's wearing, how she's speaking, whatever, she holds this very powerful place where she tells everybody to be herself, like just be yourself and speak up, and you have your space. So I like that platform. So I wish like I wish like that platform where I could stand and inspire people.
Fantastic. Question 2. You wake up tomorrow to find you've been elected president of Nepal. You've got full power. Everyone's supportive of what you're doing. You don't need to compromise to win votes or anything like that. What's the first thing you do?
I will definitely work for one thing that like the mother should be able to give citizenship to their children. So we have been like huge debate on that part in Nepal, and people are trying, and there are like people say yes, mother should be able to give citizenship, but then there are a whole bunch of people say no, the father should be always there. So that part is still on discussion. Only father, your children can only get citizenship if you have a father.
Really? I haven't heard this before. Could you explain that a little bit more?
So father is a very very important figure. So without father, you don't get the citizenship. That has been in debate for a while, and they are trying to pass it, like pass the policy where mother could give the citizenship. Like for example, like long time ago, if you don't have your husband's signature, you cannot have a credit card or something similar. So now the children cannot have a citizenship without father's signature, which I want to change completely. And like both of them should have equal rights, like either mother or father, one of them. And then the property rights, like the girls cannot they don't, well, how do you say this, like when your father divides the property, the girls don't get it, the sons gets it, but girls has to get it from their husband's family. So she literally don't get any because husbands get, the wife doesn't. So there are some of those things like the property law, the citizenship things that's happening, and then the education, and then the job. So all of these, and then the equal pay. So those are the some of the situations that I would like to change completely.
Wow. So if a child is born without a father present in Nepal, they're stateless. They're not granted Nepali citizenship.
So it's not. There is no way that there is no clear way that child can get citizenship because he doesn't have a daddy now. So the request is to have it from the mother, but like they haven't made it so clear. So the mother had to get a whole bunch of permissions and whatever, So I just want to make it very simple that the child, whoever is born to her mother, should can get it from the mother or the father. So both of them are equally rightful.
That's really, I had never heard of that before. I'll be looking into that issue a little bit more. Thank you. A couple more questions for you. Firstly, what are some other organizations that inspire you and whose work you admire?
So in Nepal, we have many organizations that we work together for girls' education and lots of menstrual health and sexual health related works in Nepal. But also one of the organization that is completely very different and is not in Nepal, it's in States, that I just recently heard and got very inspired is called food. It's about food rescue. It's called the name of the organization is Food Rescue 410 or something. I just forgot the name, but so this lady, Lisa, she started this organization where she figured out how much food waste is happening in the United States every day, like birthdays, weddings, and all these events, and then how many people are not getting enough food every day, like homeless, the shelters are everywhere. So she developed this app where people can pick food from those areas where it's being wasted and deliver it to the areas where it's needed. So it's completely volunteer run organization, and anybody can volunteer to pick up a food and drop. So this was just like very simple, but she's solving such a huge problem and it's like instant. So I got very inspired by how she also involved the technology there. She created this app where people can just sign up and then see where it is needed, where she can pick, where they can drop. So that was very inspiring to me.
That sounds really interesting. We'll put a link to that in the show notes so people can have a look at it. I also believe it's possible to volunteer at the Small World. What sorts of volunteers are you looking for?
So we have summer programs where you can come and help us in the programs that we already have. So we don't create a new program for the volunteer, but you can be with our girls' education, you can be with our children's child protection program, and you can be with any other like we call Seeds of Hope, our agriculture program, or you can help us volunteer in the health post that we have. So any of the programs will take volunteers, but we would request like more group volunteers than individual volunteers, because we develop an entire program where you can have the experience of working in our programs, and plus you have some adventure and then the sightseeing because you are in the lab of Mount Everest, so definitely take you to see Everest and live more in community. So we encourage a group of people to like form a group or like just join a group that's already happening.
Very cool. That sounds interesting. And a final question for you, Sanam. If people were to donate money to the Small World, what sorts of things would that money go towards?
So you can either sponsor a child that's with us, you can sponsor a girl's education that's either in grade 11, 12, or university level or medical education, any kind of program that you want to sponsor. Or you can also donate us in a pool, like just a general donation, and then we'll figure out where it goes. So our model is like we try to put 100% of every donated money to the program, and our administrative cost will be covered from our volunteer program. So when we sell the volunteer program, when we invite the volunteers to come, we charge them for the experience, and those costs will cover the admin cost, and also the extra money will go to the Small World's general pool.
Brilliant. That's a really good model. I like that.
Thank you.
Well, the idea with this podcast is that every month I want to feature a different not-for-profit organization, and then I also run a Patreon where people can support the project, and half the money that comes in helps me to keep sharing more stories, and then the other half goes directly to the organizations featured. So I'll be sending that donation over to the Small World very shortly. A big thank you to all the amazing people who support this project, and an even bigger thank you to you, Sanam, for taking the time to chat with me today. I really enjoyed the conversation. I really enjoyed learning all about the work that you're doing, and I look forward to following your work into the future. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me today and letting me share my story. I've never imagined I'll be sharing my story and sharing it to an audience that's not in Nepal and elsewhere in the world. So I feel great. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I really appreciate it. And thank you for donating a part of your work, your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanam. That was Sanam Sherpa, co-founder and director of women's empowerment at the Small World. As always, I'd like to highlight 3 key points that Sanam made, and the first is this one.
even though climate crisis, global warming, for many is like something that they will see on news or documentaries or still question whether it's real or unreal. This is happening real, and people here in the front line who have contributed so little on global warming are facing the challenge.
This line seemed particularly poignant to me as, while Sanam and I were speaking, governments were meeting at COP29 in Azerbaijan to discuss exactly how much wealthy nations should pay in order to help those in the global south adapt to climate change. The discussions would culminate in a pledge of $300 billion a year by 2035, less than a third of what experts believe will be necessary to avert the worst consequences of climate change in nations like Nepal. This year's floods in Nepal caused hundreds of millions of dollars worth of damage and took over 300 lives. And as similar disasters ravage communities across the world on a daily basis, those of us in the global north who bear the responsibility for those disasters still refuse to pay our fair share. The next point I'd like to highlight is this.
Mount Everest or any other mountain is not just the glory that you hear in the world. I also lived very closely with the widows that are given by Mount Everest, the orphans that are left behind by Mount Everest. So their stories are not being told, their stories are not being shared.
This was heartbreaking to hear Sanam speak about, and the conversation as a whole really spoke to the double-edged nature of tourism in a place like Nepal. Obviously, the revenue it generates can be hugely beneficial, as Sanam herself is illustrative of. But as she emphasises, the tragedies associated with the industry are far too often brushed aside and forgotten. As I said at the time, it would be one thing to choose to take on the risk of climbing Everest yourself. But the reality of the mountain is that you're never just assuming that risk as an individual. You're also requiring that other people with families and children, take on that risk as well. The final point I'd like to highlight is this.
Yeah, about 60% of the Small World staffs and program coordinators and menstrual hygiene champions, they are all our own students.
Of all the incredible work that the Small World is doing, this was undoubtedly my favourite aspect of their organisation. It's a testament to the quality of their team that after 18 years of operating, so many of their students have felt compelled to return and contribute to their work. Sanam has helped to build a truly special community in the shadows of the world's tallest mountain, and it was an honour to have her on the show. If you'd like to support the Small World, you can donate to them directly by visiting thesmallworld.org, and you can also follow their work on all the usual social media platforms. On behalf of all the amazing people who support this project, I was able to make a donation of $150 to the Small World. If you'd like to help me give more money to more amazing NGOs in the future, please consider signing up to the Patreon via the link in the show notes for as little as $5 a month. In the show notes, you'll also find further information about a range of topics that Sanam and I discussed during this conversation. Another big thank you to everyone who supports this podcast, and to Sanam Sherpa for being keen to chat with me about the incredible work of her and her team. I hope you found the Small World as inspiring as I did. A quick heads up that going forward, this project will be shifting to a focus on documentaries, as I spend the next 12 months visiting 12 incredible not-for-profit organisations across the African continent and creating short films about their work. These films will be shared to my social media and YouTube channels, and to be honest, I'm not too sure exactly what this podcast will look like over the next year. I'm hopeful that I'll still be able to produce episodes that give a deeper insight into the organisations featured. However, my priority will be the documentaries. So if you aren't already, do make sure you subscribe to my work somewhere else, whether that be Instagram, YouTube, or my newsletter, and you'll find links to all of those in the show notes. I can't wait to continue sharing the stories of more people and organisations who are making the world a better place. And so I'll see you next month in a new format with another episode of Protect the World.